Welcome to another edition of Len's Burning Bush. I am Len Harvey. Before I bring on my guest for the week, I want to talk about what's really burning my bush this week. With all the craziness going on in the world right now, and we're watching it on TV, you would think some of these billionaire owners and millionaire baseball players would actually watch TV and say, all we want to do is play baseball. It's so irrelevant, but baseball, right? And they're sitting there arguing whether or not they are going to get back to work to play again baseball. I mean, such a simple thing, not first world problems by any stretch. There's so much more important things in the world, but it'd be nice if we had this kind of to watch a little baseball. There's nothing wrong with that. After so many years, we had the pandemic and now we've got a war going on. Just can they just play baseball? I mean, does anybody remember the season ending earlier in 1994? We had no postseason, and then it took baseball forever. I mean, we had the steroid thing with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in '98. We didn't care. We liked it. It was good. It was a home run chase, and everybody got back to baseball. You know, it's just amazing on it. The home run chase brought us back to baseball, and now they want to just kill it again. They announced the postponement of spring training games through March the 5th, but then as the negotiations kept going, now they're saying that they're not going to play at least until March the 8th at the earliest. And since they're so good at deadlines, Major League Baseball has set Monday, the 28th of February, as a date to maybe, you know, where they can miss games or not miss games. I mean, getting to a point now where an MLB spokesman told reporters miss games are miss games and salary will not be paid for those games. And several people took to social media to criticize this on MLB. And it said, let's get this straight. Cardinals pitcher Jack Flaherty said on Twitter, we are currently being locked out. They did not meet us for a month once the lockout's instituted. Now we're being threatened that games will be missed if we don't make a deal by Monday. So what is this really all about, right? What are we arguing over? As of late Friday afternoon, a gulf remained between the sides on core economic issues, including the competitive balance tax, the pre-arbitration bonus pool, minimum salaries, yada, yada. Just give me a break here. It's getting to the point where we really need to play baseball and stop this nonsense because at the end of the day, we might not see baseball anymore. Now, Doug Glanville, who used to play baseball and was involved with the last lockout, said resolve is going to be tested. There are players that have had their entire careers without a labor stoppage. So it's natural for the owners to go, how tough are these guys? They haven't really gone through this, and they'd never miss paychecks. So, again, we've had a pandemic. We have a war going on. All we want you to do is play baseball. We're not asking for too much. Can't we at least work this out? Now, what will the lockout mean for the season? We don't know, but what will the lockout mean for baseball? Could this really be the end of what used to be America's pastime, or is the word past kind of the big key word in this past time? Now, if we let the two sides do nothing, we may need an intervention like what happened back in 1995, where the owners plan to open the 1995 season with replacement players. But before that can happen, a future Supreme Court Justice, Sonia Sotomayor, then federal judge in the Southern District of New York, issued an injunction against Major League Baseball, ending the strike. Now, let me just get this straight. I love baseball. I am a huge baseball fan. But if there is no season, like everyone else, we will find something else to watch, something else to do. And that just makes me crazy. And we have to wait until football season comes back in August. With that being said, it's time to bring on my guest for the week. He is a longtime broadcaster. He's been around the business for a little bit. Radio host from the great state of New Jersey. We've worked together. It's been a very, very long time. Let's welcome David Delgaudio to Len's Burning Bush. And let me get you up on the screen here. I'm going to add you to the stream. And as we do the YouTube thing, along with everything else. But Del, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. I think we worked together in the early 90s, so it's been almost 30 years.
I know it's crazy where we work together. But before we get to that, I just want to get your take on this whole, we've got a war going on. We've had a pandemic, and these guys can't figure out how to split billions of dollars.
Well, it's greed, number one. The scary part about baseball is that the core ages of the baseball fans are going up. It's 50 and older. That's what you see in the stands. That's scary because when that generation goes away, you're alienating the 20s and the 30s and the 40-year-olds. So the 20-year-olds, maybe they care about baseball, but they also care about maybe gambling on baseball. So the core people, our ages, older than us, they care about the sanctity of the game. And the word pastime is a very important part because if you want to watch CNN or Fox or whatever your site is on to watch the war, baseball is an outlet. And it's an outlet. And I'm a huge baseball fan. And you
Yeah.
were talking before about 1994. You know, everyone knows Buck Showalter was the coach of the Yankees. Yankees were great that year. And Buck never got to the World Series with the Yankees because Torrey took his spot. So it could happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be 11th hour. I think it's going to, they're going to figure it out because they're ruining the game, especially for us who care about the game.
So just to give you kind of I love the game. Okay. I brought my son. Okay. 21 years old. We went to just this summer, Yankee Stadium, and then we went to Citi Field. Right.
Yep.
And there's nothing better than being with your son or being with just sitting in a ballpark watching a baseball game with a beer, a hot dog. Used to be baseball, hot dog, apple pie, remember, and Chevrolet. But
yes.
I really believe, that's going to be gone. I mean, football is not the same in the stands as baseball is. Maybe because of the weather, it's a little bit different. But I just think that when you're at a baseball game, you're sitting. You can have conversation. The game is there. You could look at the strategy. Everybody says it's too slow. I don't agree with that. I love it. And it is an outlet. We need an outlet. And again, we're going to find something else to do, right?
Football, the USFL, which is coming back in April, has 8 teams. One of them is the New Jersey Generals. Remember Herschel Walker?
Yeah, I love it.
They're all going to play in one building in Alabama. So if that's supposed to take our mind off of baseball, and a year from then is going to be the XFL, which, remember, he hate me.
Yeah.
If you remember that. Okay. So that's what the NFL tries every year to go from the Super Bowl to the combine to the draft and now to XFL and USFL. Just not going to cut it.
No, it's not. But I always like to say football is just the marketing machine. They try to keep it in these guys on ESPN and everybody. All they're doing is just talking about football every minute of every single day. As soon as, the season's over, they're talking about who's going where, and they're talking through this and where's Aaron Rodgers going and all these things. And we got a couple of things we could talk about with football today, but I just hope that, maybe by the time this episode, we're airing it now, but within the next weekend or Monday date, hopefully it'll be a thing of the past, and it will that we'll have baseball by the end of the week, and that's really what we're looking for. I mean, just to have baseball back.
Yeah, knocking baseball out from March 31st to April 8th just to satisfy a bunch of hotheads would be a shame. Let's start it on March 31st.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think you've got to. Spring training is awesome. I mean, people are out there. Florida, it's such a nice thing to be able to go. The weather's getting nicer now, and everybody wants to get out there. And let's face it, we live in places where the winter stinks, and you're just out there. You just look forward to it. It's like something positive to look forward to. God forbid. So, I want to bring people up to speed. You and I work together at really an organization where people before the internet, think about how you used to get your sports scores and how you used to get your information. We work for a company, a 976 number that we would announce the updates, sports line in New Jersey. And it was a great place to work, a fantastic experience and on the cutting edge, because during this time came up with a 900 number for Scores Live, which got live updates of every NFL game when it was happening, right? Why don't you talk about that?
Well, in 1987, I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and I was hanging out with somebody, and he said to me, "You're a big horse racing fan." So we have the Meadowlands right in our backyard. And he said, "Why don't you come?" And I was on WFMV in Blairstown doing my, early morning 6:50 an hour job on radio, where he says, why don't you go and try out for the 976 programs in Newark? And I lived in North Arlington, which is 5 minutes from Newark. And I was a racing fan, so I knew the actual program before. So I got the job. I got a part-time job there, and I said, I really want to be in radio. I want to be on K-Rock. I want to be a rock DJ. And in the second week, I had 60 hours, and I had to quit my job. So 3 years later, I became general manager in the early 90s when you came on.
Yep.
And basically what it was people dialed in to get lottery, weather, sports scores, Meadowlands racing results, horoscopes, and Dial-A-Santa. And we were doing 1 million calls a day in the late 80s, early 90s. And you came aboard when we did a thing called Scores Live. So Scores Live was a 900 phone. So if anybody is old enough to remember the party lines, for dating and for whatever, this was a 50 people could listen at the same time. They all could talk at the same time. So I would sit at a table with 25, 30 screens in front of me. And for 99 cents a minute, I would do multiple play-by-plays, which is technically what Scott Hansen does on the Red Zone.
Yeah.
So we would do $40,000, $50,000 an afternoon. That's the profits we would make on just because no one had a way of getting scores. I mean, the cell phones didn't really come through until the mid 2000s, and we were still doing, and it was 13 cents a call. So it really didn't kill anybody. So what I can tell anybody who's old enough is most of the calls came from hospitals and offices where, you get the hard 13-cent call. We would get about a penny per call, and Verizon would get the rest. So that's what I did from 1987 till it ended in 2013. And you were part of it for about 3 or 4 years in the early 90s, correct?
Yeah, I did, and I loved it. I would work overnights sometimes, and that was always a great shift. I remember we had at the place we worked, we had a dog there. Delilah was just awesome.
We worked with Joe Lombardi, Vince Lombardi's brother.
Yeah,
and we also worked with a guy named Mitch Kaufman, who was the tape. He used to tape for the Nets. So when they would actually videotape and they would send the tapes across. It was in Lodi, right?
Yeah, it was in Lodi, and Mitch would do the Devil games, would do everything, and I would see him there, and then I would see him, and they would run the tapes, and that was again before they had so much video. They would overnight video to coaches and to other stuff too. It was incredible, but I loved the job. I was Lenny L was for
that was him.
Lenny L for Sportsline.
Yeah, well,
it's our next update. Yeah.
We changed locations in the late 90s, and then we went to South Hackensack, where we downsized a bit because obviously there were less calls. And what really stopped the calls was, if you remember, Headline News was the first organization to decide that there was going to be scores on the bottom. So everyone would watch the scores instead of call us. So we started taking a hit, but lottery never took a hit because I always tell people that lottery took a hit, never took a hit because people wanted to know the lottery results immediately. So as long as we did our job, they would call, and that would keep everybody's salary going.
Yeah.
And I worked there 27 years until 2013.
That's fantastic. Now, we had some great people that were great talent at the places. I know Sports Phone in New York was different, and they had a lot of good talent as well on the other side of the river, but we had some really good talent. I remember Paul and Vinny and
and Dan Fano and Kurt.
Yeah.
Those were guys. I don't know if they all went on to broadcasting career, but most of the people that came through were mostly short-termers, except for like Paul and Vinny, who stayed for quite a while. Yeah. But most of them would come in for 3 and 4 years, and some of them were young. A lot of them came out of Connecticut School of Broadcasting because what we could offer is 24 hours. So like if you wanted to work midnight to 8, you could work the overnight weathers. We did Newsday weathers. We did Westchester County, Sussex County, New York City, and North and South Jersey. So if you worked for us between midnight and 8, you basically worked 5 minutes an hour. And then you brought your lunch, or you brought a videotape or whatever, or listen to Steve Summers.
Well, it was my favorite job, and I had just at the time was getting married, getting whatever. So it was the best job to just do it, and it helped because I did some. It got me more into radio.
Mhm.
I did some work at WFDU, and I did ball games and stuff like that too. But I enjoyed doing it, and it's a shame that stuff like that doesn't. You've got now where you can get so many things, so many scores, and so many things at any moment. You're on your phone, and it's so easy to do now.
Well, it's quite amazing that in 2008, when the housing market crashed, um, we changed it to 99 cents, and that was the only way we could actually maintain a salary for multiple people. So in the beginning, we started making a decent amount of money, but by 2013, Verizon flexed its muscles and says, "We're not going to bill anymore on the actual phone bill because phone bills used to be a stack. Now that doesn't even exist anymore. 800 numbers really don't even exist anymore. So everything's pretty much free." So in 2013, we said we locked up the doors in Lodi, and it was over. But I knew it was coming. But 2008 to 2012, we made a decent amount of money because we elevated the price, and people really didn't care about the price. There was a lot of people still calling the lottery, and a lot of morning people would use the weather reports instead of going to the television or their phone. They just wanted to hear it. So I don't know if it was a friendly voice or just programmed in your phone. And the one other thing, Verizon didn't allow it on cell phones. So that was starting to be a problem because I don't know if you have a landline at home. I know I
No,
don't.
no.
So landline was the key. If you didn't have a landline, you couldn't get billed. Verizon couldn't make their money. Verizon made billions of dollars on this, and this was separate from the New York sports phone, where that was in Garden City, Long Island, which was completely different from ours. But we were competitive. New York could call into Jersey, but Jersey couldn't call into New York. It was so odd.
Right. Very, very, yeah, very odd, but incredible thing. And, when we were when we were doing this, it was the advent of DirecTV doing the Sunday Ticket, which started, and you talked about Red Zone, but finally, DirecTV, I think they started, I want to say 96, maybe,
Yeah,
was when DirecTV started, 95, 96.
yeah, yes. That's when
Yeah.
the live score phone was active in 95 to heavily into 99. Like
Right.
really a lot of incredible. We would do college basketball. We would do Hawaii college basketball to 4 in the morning.
Yeah. It was. It was fantastic. I remember that. And we had a great time. We were all in this room, and it was just all you heard was people doing their reports on a Sunday afternoon when you had to do reports. You had 4 different voices, and it was just that's all you heard was everybody screaming. That
Well,
was kind of
how about this one? How about your boss telling you not to gamble? And now look where we are now.
oh, I know gambling. Everything is about gambling. So apparently, Apple and Amazon are reportedly now the front runners to get the Sunday Ticket now for 2023.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that with the Rams coach. He declined a contract with Amazon to
Yeah.
stay with them. Yeah, I figured DirecTV would eventually be gone.
Yeah, because I think they're owned by AT&T now, and I guess it's not as big of a deal. I hope that if they do, with Amazon and Apple, that they make it into more of where you could get your team maybe, or it just seems like to spend $300 for every single game. At some point, the red zone is good enough for the rest of the stuff. If you could just watch your team, that would be good.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's lasted so long in that way through DirecTV. Like if you want, I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to watch the Dolphins, I can watch it against the Jets, or if it's on national TV, and our team stinks pretty much.
Yeah.
So, so I don't really see it that often, but I watch the red zone, and I still watch the games and so forth, but I'm not as deeply into it as I was when I worked for Sports Phone.
Yeah. And I'm kind of the same way. It's kind of weird. You take, I guess we fill the time with other things. Obviously, family and children will do that. You're coaching. I've noticed you've coached baseball like I did. Kind of
25 years. I just retired. Yeah.
I retired after 15. So you beat me by 10 years. I was like, it was
kids got older.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, it was after a certain point. What was the most fun time though? I will say this because I coached my kid, and I'm sure you did as well. Right. So my son played till he was, think he was like 16 or 17. But at one of the years, I just said, you know what? I'm done, because the parents drive you nuts, right? I mean, it's just so I believe, I want to say he was 15 and he was playing on another team. And I was sitting in the stands in a lawn chair, just kind of sitting on the sides. And I said, that was the most fun time. I actually got to enjoy
The
watching
game.
him play and the game.
Yes.
I'm like, it had me so bitter after a while. It was rewarding at some point, but it also had me very bitter. And then once I was able to sit and watch the game, it was like the best experience ever. Somebody else was handling it.
Well, some parents really cause your stress that doesn't really belong as a coach, because you tried to play everybody, you tried to be
Yeah,
fair, but you're also trying to win,
of course.
especially if you're coaching travel teams.
Yeah.
If you're coaching a travel team and a child isn't that good, it's tough on the parent, because there's money involved and whatever. But that's part of the reason. My kid he played till he was 15. My older one played till he was about 18. So I coached all the way through travel through. We're in Belleville now, so that's where we were from. But mostly the parents is part of the problem, especially the ones that don't understand. And that causes stress for a coach. But I had a great time coaching for 25
Yeah.
years, and like you're a purist. So baseball is my purist.
Yeah. No, and I think I enjoyed, I remember, having meetings at the mound on opening day
Hmm.
and sitting there. It was a gorgeous afternoon. It was like probably 55, 60 degrees, and you're outside, and it's April, and you're getting excited. And I took everybody right before the first pitch. I grabbed everybody in a meeting, and I said, just suck this in. I said,
Right.
because
Look
you
around.
look around. I said, I know you're 10. You might not think about this. It might not be such a big deal, but for me, this is a big deal, because I am just loving that. I miss it so much, because
Hmm.
when you get older, you don't have the fun that
No.
you have. Now, I wanted to ask you one thing as a coach, and this is something that I've had conversations with people about. And one of the things I have suggested is that there is so much structure for these kids today, where they're playing on these travel teams and they're playing so many coached baseball games, probably 60, 70 games a year. And it's not the amount of games that I have a problem with. I think it's the amount of structure. I used to love, I brought my friends on from North Bergen, and we played stickball. We played all kinds of things. I don't think the kids get a chance to do that. And they wind up getting burnt out after a while.
It's overkill. It's especially the higher end players who play on multiple teams, and some of the parents lie that they don't play on other teams. And you have a kid who's 13, 14 years old who may have pitched himself out of high school. He may not be able to pitch in high school.
I know.
Oh, we used to play box ball
Yep.
and stick ball and wiffle ball and little league, and it wasn't a problem. Now the coaches are so like, do not do this, do not do this, do not do this. And if you would be better off being a pitcher in high school if you probably played an infield position between the ages of 8 and 14, because you didn't use your arm.
Oh, I know. I think, here's the thing that I did. And again, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, but I always felt that, to me, when I was a kid, I just kind of did what I thought was right. Right. So when I pitched in Little League, I would throw as many pitches as I could once a week.
Right.
So it wasn't about a pitch count. It was, I can only pitch, let's say I pitched on Saturday, then I would definitely, I wouldn't pitch like until next Saturday. So that was the way I was brought up. And what I did with my kids is that I don't care if they threw, 60 pitches or 90 pitches. That wasn't the problem. It was the stopping and starting that was the problem. So if you said, hey, the kid only threw 45 pitches on Monday, let's bring him back on Wednesday. And I didn't like that. I think that the amount of torque, regardless of how many pitches that you throw in a given game, it's just, you're done for a week. I mean, you really are. And that's
No,
kind of where, I did that.
That's a big problem. And even my shoulder, throwing 25 years of practice ball without a machine, has basically, I've got some rotator cuff stuff that's a problem. if you really want your kid to be successful in high school and you really have high aspirations for him in college, I wouldn't pitch him young.
No, because of the way they pitch them, though. So it all depends. Like, I didn't have one kid get hurt when it came
Mhm.
to pitching, but I knew other kids on other teams that, they would throw curveballs at 12 years old.
Insane.
And in an exhibition game, they would pitch in the morning and pitch in the afternoon. It's like, you don't get it, do you? Oh, well, he only threw 20 pitches. I don't care. It doesn't, it's
Well,
one of those things where it drives me nuts.
the coaches live through their children and boast to their friends about victory, which is one of the biggest problems. Do you I mean, obviously you want to win. You try
Yeah.
to teach them teamwork and all that kind of stuff, but it really doesn't matter if you win at the age of 11.
No, nobody's going to ever ask you on a job interview or even in a high school team how many championships you won at the age of 8.
I'll
Right?
I'll tell you a quick story. 50-70 is the 12-year-old team that I decided to take to USABL in New Jersey. And I really took the Bad News Bears to the championship we were the 5th seed. We beat the 4, we beat the 1, then we beat the 2. And I won a championship with a 12-year-old team that had some good players, but was partially Kelly Leak and Lupus and all those guys, and won it against Kenilworth. And then there was a fight broke out after the game.
Oh, of course. And I had the same, I had a similar experience. Again, I didn't do the travel league. I coached the rec. We had
Right.
Knothole. So I
Mhm.
stayed in Knothole because
Right.
my reaction was, if you can't figure out if you're good enough in 14 games, I don't think you need 25, 30 games.
I agree.
I could tell who could play 14. And to me, I always believed in, if you go to a high school practice at a freshman and they throw you the ball, you catch it and you pitch it and you hit it, they're going to pick you. Okay.
Absolutely.
There's no, whether you played travel ball or didn't, I don't think it really matters. They will find you if you're good enough. But I think what I liked is I played all my kids, okay, all year.
Mhm.
And by the time the end of the season, my team was always getting better. And by the time the postseason came, we played against, it was the funniest thing. We had a kid that got cut from another team. So I brought him on. It was kind of like, I had a lot of the kids that, divorced parents, they barely brought them to the game. I had to buy them shoes. I mean, I'm
picked
not,
them up.
yeah, I picked, yeah, exactly. And again, I'm not a saint by any
Right.
stretch,
I get
but
you.
I just felt like this was my calling, right? So we had situation where I brought a kid on and he wasn't very good at the time.
Mhm.
But I had a rule that, I would move the kids around and I would have an Excel spreadsheet. And this would be like in the 6th inning that this kid would play. And we'd have most of the kids would play at least 3 innings and they would bat all the time.
Mhm.
Like we made sure that they batted, right?
1 through 12. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would do that. And what happened was the kids started to get pretty good. And what I did also is you had a situation where kids went on vacation and you needed those kids. So if you didn't ever play them, how do you know if they could even do it? So by the end of the season, all the kids had played. So this kid who got cut from the other team, we played that team in the semifinals of the Knothole. Now, again, the 1s and the 2s would go to the city. So we were kind of like the second tier, but
Right.
it didn't matter to us. It was good enough, right? So we're playing in the semifinals against this team, and the kid gets up against his old team and gets a base hit to win the game. And the smile on his face was worth everything I had ever done just because of that. I didn't care if we won anything else after that, because he felt like, here's a kid who got cut. You get cut from these teams in a rec baseball. You get cut. And
No pressure.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it comes
If
down
you don't put pressure on any of the kids, the most satisfying thing as a coach is your 8 and 9 batter scoring in a game.
Yeah.
Or getting on base, and because that the 1, 2, and 3 are going to do their job. But when the 8 and the 9 does something, there's nothing more gratifying.
Oh, and it was just that was what I loved. And the other kind of field of dreams moment for me was, and I've told this story before, but so if you've heard it, people have heard it, it's okay. We'll tell it again. But my son was 8 years old and we had just finished second place. We lost in the final. Okay.
Mhm.
And I had the kids, they were walking around with the trophy. They were, it wasn't like the Bad News Bears where they threw the trophy where he threw the trophy. But no, they were going around. They were excited because they played great all year.
Mm-hmm.
And my son comes to me to the side and says, it was kind of like, you want to have a catch? It was the same kind of deal. He goes, Dad, can you take a picture with me with the trophy?
There you go.
I was like, that was worth it.
Yeah. You didn't have to coach another game the rest of your life.
No, I didn't. And that was at 8 years old. And then I had another couple of moments where I was so proud, like, where my son struck out somebody to win a game. And I went to the mound and I said to him, I go, I'm going to trust you here. You're going to get this guy out. And I walked back to the dugout and he struck the guy out and we won. And I said, I never had been more proud at that moment. Like, just
it's
because
amazing.
Yeah, you just get, there's a couple of tear moments and, can I have a catch, Dad? It's all good. I could talk baseball all night, but I wanted to kind of get into, and we kind of glossed over it a little bit. You've got a show now on the radio. So why don't you give a little plug here?
So I do a show called Mind the Gap, which is a British alternative radio show. I've been doing it for 16 years. I did it for 12 years at Montclair State. And it started out, it was a DJ at the Loop Lounge in Passaic, New Jersey, which is a staple of alternative music in North Jersey. And one of the bands says to me, well, why don't you come to Montclair? Our radio station doesn't have enough shows. So I wound up mentoring a ton of students from there, who some of them work at NBC, CNBC now, and Fox and whatever. But I did 12 years at Montclair. And now I moved to FDU, where Duff hired me to go to HD2. And I spent 3 years on HD2. And one of the DJs for Sunday night just left about 4 weeks ago. So I was promoted to HD1, which is 89.1. And it's called Mind the Gap. And it's Sundays at 10 o'clock at WFDU.FM. It's on HD1 or 89.1. And it's basically a British alternative show, which breaks bands who may be popular 3 or 4 years from now. And I play the old punk classics. Don't forget, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. So I have an alternative vibe to me. I worked at Webster Hall. I worked at The World. I worked at the Melody Bar in New Brunswick. So that's another side of me. You remember when I was working, I was DJing at the Melody in New Brunswick on Saturday nights. I'd come in for the Sunday games, half in the bag, because I was DJing till 3 a.m. But it's a great show. I'm going to continue to do it. I've done almost 600 shows already, but it's definitely something new to be on the dial. 89.1.
Well, it's so good to talk to you again. I want to give you props for hiring me to do that on 89. Listen to me, Sundial, and to do the 976 numbers, because it's all that kind of stuff that got me to today. And I you can't. It's so great to reminisce about. It's like back in my day, I like to say, but it's great to kind of continue to to do this. I love to do this just like you do. It's a passion, the radio and the TV stuff and sports, and I could go on and on about all of the stuff, but I'm sure no one wants to really hear that. But thank you again for giving me that shot, because not everybody gets a shot.
It's a pleasure. The group of guys that work there, I don't know where all of them are now. I do talk to one or two of them once in a while, but Facebook keeps you in touch, from a distance. But yeah, it was. I always tell, because VSiN, I don't know if you know VSiN, which is the gambling network. That's just it's a television show. They want me to come on and talk about like how to get scores and so forth. And I said, I have many stories about who came through Sundial and how many times they had to run out because they were putting 100-time reverse in the parking lot.
You taught me. I gotta say, I understood how to do that, and it's kind of funny about that. And make sure you understand. Now you can like Lens Burning Bush on Facebook at Lens Burning Bush. You can follow along at Lens Burning Bush on Twitter. This is the live feed is on Twitter. It's on Facebook Live, so you could see the video on YouTube as well. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, whatever you got to do on that. But you can also listen, and you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. You can even ask Alexa to play Lens Burning Bush. But Del, make sure you say Lens Burning Bush podcast, because we don't know what's going to come up if you do. And just to explain, Lens Burning Bush just really means what's irritating me and burning my, crawl. So that's kind of, everybody thinks it's a little religious thing, or there's other aspects to it. Has nothing to do with that. So if you don't know why you're listening, but thanks again, Del, for coming on. And why don't you give one more time where they could find you on Sundays?
Sunday, 10 p.m. If you're not in the North Jersey area, Hudson Valley, New York City, you can go to WFDU.FM, HD1. Or if you're driving in your car, it's 89.1. I'm on till 1 a.m. Eastern time. And Len, 99 shows. I got the Gretzky show.
You did. So, you got the Gretzky show. That's awesome.
And I'll take 199 if you'll have me back.
You know what? We'll have that, and we could box it. We'll be all set. We'll be all good. Thank you, Del. I'm Len Harvey. We'll be back with another episode of Len's Burning Bush next week. So long.